What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And boy, do we have a lot of news to talk about. So we had the third day of free agency of the NFL's legal tampering period, and at the time of making this video, the Chiefs did not make any moves today, but boy, did they see a lot of departures. I mean, guys, today was crazy as far as seeing some of these now former Chiefs land in new places, but I got to start at the very top, the move that happened right before I made this video. I had a very long day. I decided to take a nap when I got home. Woke up from that nap shortly after. I saw that Orlando Brown Jr. signed a 4-year deal with the Cincinnati Bengals for upwards of $60 million. So let's start right there. We knew that when the Kansas City Chiefs, we had a pretty good idea that Orlando Brown was not returning to the Chiefs when Kansas City decided not to use the franchise tag on him. But after the Chiefs signed Juan Taylor, we pretty much knew Orlando Brown is gone. He's not going to be in Kansas City next year. So it just came down to wait and see where he decides to go. It'll be interesting to see how his market developed, because it seemed like, especially after he didn't sign on the first couple of days of free agency, that Orlando Brown overplayed his hand, misread his market, and he was not going to get as much money as he wanted or as he thought he would. And that ended up being the case. I mean, you look at his deal with the Cincinnati Bengals, 4 years, $64 million. That's about $16 million per year. That's way less than Orlando Brown wanted, really. I mean, you look at what Kansas City offered him last year. It was that 5-year deal for like $125 million. He was going to be making way more. And now he's taking way less. But he's still going to be paid as a left tackle, and he's going to be playing left tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals. The Chiefs did not see him as a left tackle. A lot of the league did not see him as a left tackle. I thought the Chicago Bears made a lot of sense. I thought for sure Ryan Poles would probably pull the trigger on Orlando Brown, especially after their deal fell through with Mike McGlinchey, who they really wanted. But no, he goes to the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's where this move really hits is, of all teams, Orlando Brown, you go to the Cincinnati Bengals, and you know that there was a little bit of motivation to get this deal done so that Orlando Brown could be a Cincinnati Bengal. Both sides can pretend like there's no animosity, but there's always a little bit of animosity, especially from the player side, when, the Kansas City Chiefs essentially told Orlando Brown without actually telling him that we don't think you're good enough. Orlando Brown definitely felt like that. I mean, he went on ESPN earlier today talking about his free agency, which also seemed like a cry out to teams saying like, hey, please pay me to be your left tackle, because his market wasn't going nearly as strong as he thought it would. But he was on there and he was like, hey, it was really tough being in Kansas City because I had to take on all these one-on-ones. And it's like, well, dude, that's what a left tackle does. You're going to be facing a lot of one-on-ones. And it's funny to me because I know Cincinnati Bengals fans, I mean, you guys know how that rivalry is heating up between the Chiefs and the Bengals. A lot of Cincinnati fans now are going to be like, oh my God, we stole Orlando Brown from the Chiefs. And it's like, Kansas City moved on from Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown was one of the worst left tackles in the league last year when it came to surrendering pressures. Now, if you guys go back and look at my videos from earlier this offseason and earlier throughout the year, and I was a big, Orlando Brown isn't as bad as people are saying, or I don't think the Chiefs could do much better than him, looking at the left tackle market and looking at the draft position. I just thought it would have been the safest option to keep Orlando Brown, and I still kind of felt that way, even heading into free agency. But at the end of the day, seeing what the Chiefs have in store for Juwan Taylor and him playing left tackle, I think he could be a lot better than Orlando Brown. And all that being said, that doesn't mean that I was ever okay with overpaying for Orlando Brown or having Orlando Brown being our long-term left tackle. Like, I always thought we could have done better. Sure, I just wasn't sure how we would be able to actually get someone who was better. But the Chiefs got someone who I believe can be better than Orlando Brown. And Orlando Brown did surrender a lot of pressures last year. Like, I can be honest about that. Yeah, he had a good postseason and kicked ass in the Super Bowl, but that shouldn't earn you a paycheck that you don't necessarily deserve. Like, we just learned from this with Frank Clark. Like, you guys can say whatever you want about Frank Clark's postseason performance. They were paying the dude $20-30 million to be mediocre during the regular season. And as much as fans want to pretend it doesn't matter, the regular season counts. Like, I want a player that can produce year-round. I mean, a lot of thoughts racing through my head right now about Orlando Brown signing with the Cincinnati Bengals. I want to laugh at it, and I am kind of laughing at it because of the team that he went to and the fact that he settled for way less money. And yeah, the Chiefs will have the opportunity to go up against him next year. But when you think about Orlando Brown's weaknesses, that's, he has trouble handling speed rushers. He struggles with speed rushers, guys that can bend around the edge or just play really fast and beat them off the line. And then you look at Kansas City's pass rush, that's not really the game they play. Spags loves power rushers, guys that aren't super fast or super bendy or super athletic. Like Omenihu, who they signed yesterday, is a good athlete. George Karlaftis is a good athlete if you look at his relative athletic score. But those aren't guys that have that sort of Von Miller type of athleticism that can really bend around the edge and get to the quarterback in like 2 seconds. And it's like, yeah, I want the Chiefs to be able to exploit this matchup next year, but they don't really have that type of edge rusher that can do that. Like, they don't have the edge rusher on roster that Orlando Brown struggles with. Like, I could see Orlando Brown doing well against our pass rush, honestly, because that's the kind of matchup he actually thrives in. I will say, though, I would not be surprised next year when the Chiefs face the Bengals if Kansas City ended up kicking Chris Jones outside to go up against Orlando Brown, and they say, Chris, have at it. But yeah, I mean, those are my initial thoughts on Orlando Brown departing the Kansas City Chiefs for the Cincinnati Bengals on a 4-year, $64 million deal. Now, let's get to the second biggest departure from the day, one that I am genuinely sad about, and that is wide receiver JuJu Smith-Schuster heading to the New England Patriots on a 3-year, $33 million deal. It's an $11 million per year deal. However, JuJu Smith-Schuster is getting quite a bit of guaranteed money. Over $20 million of this contract is guaranteed, and he's getting a large base salary in the first year of the contract. Ultimately, why I think he ended up choosing to sign with the Patriots. From all reporters, it sounds like the Kansas City Chiefs really wanted to keep JuJu Smith-Schuster, but in the end, they weren't willing to go the financial lengths that other teams were willing to, and that makes sense when you look at the structure of this deal that he signed with the Patriots. But at the same time, I am kind of sad that the Chiefs could not match that. Like, $11 million per year. Like, people were afraid of losing JuJu for like $15 million per year. $11 million per year in this market for a guy that easily could have had 1,000 yards. That is a steal for JuJu Smith-Schuster. 3 years, $33 million. Like, I'm really disappointed the Chiefs are not able to do this. JuJu is a quality receiver. Now, maybe the Chiefs had concerns over his nagging knee injury over the past year, and maybe JuJu just wanted to go somewhere else, because, like, you look at the way Ian Rappaport tweeted about the deal. He said, JuJu picks the Patriots, which makes me think the Chiefs offered something similar, maybe along with another team, and JuJu just ultimately decided he wanted to go to New England. But this one makes me sad, man, because JuJu Smith-Schuster was a guy that I was calling for all last offseason. Even before the season ended, I really wanted him. Thought he was a perfect fit for the offense. Comes here, wins a Super Bowl ring. Just a great teammate. Great example of what a Kansas City Chief is supposed to be. He loved it here. He wanted to come back under the right circumstances. And it ends, man. His 1-year deal. That's all it was. 1 year in Kansas City. But I think we're all going to look back on his time in Kansas City fondly. He's a Super Bowl champion forever. No one can take that away from him. And he was a big contributor to what the Chiefs were able to do last year. It's just sad, man. Like, I really liked JuJu. I really wanted to hang on to him, but it just didn't work out. But now this leaves a pretty big need at wide receiver, because James Palmer reported before free agency began that the Chiefs kind of wanted to bring everyone back. They weren't able to do that, and now they have to be in the hunt for a receiver. I mean, there's other veterans out there, and with the way this market is going, you can easily get one of those guys for not so much money, like a DJ Chark. I would love if the Chiefs went out there and grabbed DJ Chark. Or there's also the possibility of DeAndre Hopkins, which now seems like it's on the table because you weren't able to bring back JuJu. Do you go out there, trade like a third-round pick for DeAndre Hopkins, see if he can renegotiate his deal a little bit? I don't know. We'll see, man. But it definitely feels like the Chiefs have to go out and do something now, because I don't see them really just drafting another receiver in like the second or third round and saying, okay, we're good with this. Like Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney. If we're being real, guys, like, yeah, I know they have Travis Kelce, but if we're being real, that's a bottom 5 receiving core in the NFL. I love Kadarius Toney. Can't stay healthy yet. We haven't seen it. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, solid, but that dude is a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 on a good team. And Sky Moore, like, yeah, there's reasons to be optimistic, but he didn't really do anything this year. And that's why I'm not comfortable just drafting another rookie and saying, hey, here you go. Like, the Chiefs wide receiver core is good. No, because, like, what if they have a year like Sky Moore just had? You're not getting enough from the receiver position if that's the case. But going back to JuJu Smith-Schuster, I appreciate his time in Kansas City. I wish he could have stuck around long term. I thought he was a great fit for this team. It just is what it is. I mean, this was ultimately the goal when he signed his 1-year deal here. Have a bounce back year, put up numbers, go and get paid in the offseason. He did that, and no hard feelings at all, man. Like, I'm happy for JuJu, and I hope he has all the success in the world moving forward. But I got to say, man, JuJu, really? Mac Jones? You went from Patrick Mahomes to Mac Jones? Good luck, man. All right, moving on to the other Chiefs news from today. So, defensive tackle Colin Saunders signed a 3-year deal with the New Orleans Saints. He can make up to $14.5 million on this deal. And this was another one that was kind of sad to see. Colin Saunders really came on this year, and that was a pretty cheap contract that he signed with the Saints for 3 years. And I would have loved to have held on to him. The Chiefs need defensive tackle depth. This makes the Tershawn Wharton signing even more important. 1 year for $2 million. They signed Tershawn Wharton a couple days ago. And ultimately, if it came down to either Saunders or Wharton, I'm much happier with Tershawn Wharton, not only because I think he can be the better player, but also because it's the much better deal. 1 year for $2 million as opposed to Colin Saunders, 3 years, $14 million or $15 million, whatever it is. Not that Saunders isn't necessarily worth that. I'm not saying that. It's just the better financial deal to get Tershawn Wharton back for so cheap, especially when he was your starter before he got hurt and Colin Saunders stepped in. But Saunders was a good story, man. Like, I bagged on him for the first few years because he didn't really do anything. Was surprised he made the roster. And then he steps in this year, has 3.5 sacks, good energy guy to have in this pass rushing room. And now he goes and cashes in with the New Orleans Saints. A good spot for him. He'll be teaming back up with Tano Passanio there in New Orleans, who signed an extension with them earlier this offseason. So I'm happy for Colin Saunders. The Chiefs will definitely need to be looking for some more defensive tackle depth. I would not be surprised at all if they address defensive tackle in the draft. But yeah, they lose Colin Saunders today to the New Orleans Saints. That was one of the other big ones. Then the last biggest departure today that the Kansas City Chiefs saw is safety Juan Thornhill, who signed a 3-year, $21 million deal with the Cleveland Browns. This was pretty much expected that Juan Thornhill was going to be moving on, and the Chiefs were bracing to lose him in free agency. I'm happy for Juan Thornhill, though. This is another one similar to Colin Saunders, kind of. Like, it's not the end of the world losing Juan Thornhill. It looked like he wasn't going to be back. And he goes and he cashes in with the Cleveland Browns after winning a couple of Super Bowls with Kansas City. Another guy from the 2019 draft class gone, and he's cashing in elsewhere. It's a good deal. Like, $7 million per year is, I think, exactly what he was projected to make on SpotTrack.com. That was his market value, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a good deal for the Cleveland Browns. They get a safety that can do a little bit of everything for them. But at the end of the day, Juan Thornhill, he was a nice player, but never really got back to his rookie year form or back to the pace he was on his rookie season with the Kansas City Chiefs. Got beat a lot. Sometimes looked like he had no idea what the hell he was doing trying to tackle. A lot of inconsistency. Never really bounced back fully from that ACL injury. but he's still a good serviceable safety. He belongs in the NFL, and that's why you see him landing on another team with the Cleveland Browns. But the Kansas City Chiefs, they were expecting this to happen, and they drafted Brian Cook for a reason. Brian Cook got a lot of playing time this year as a rookie, got a lot of playing time in the postseason, and now this is his time to step up and be that second safety next to Justin Reed in the defensive backfield. But with all that being said, we know the Chiefs like to play three safeties a lot, so I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe tried to pick up a veteran free agent safety that's not Juan Thornhill for cheaper. I mentioned Taylor Rapp on arrowheadaddict.com. He seems like a Chiefs type of signing, someone that could be cheaper than Juan Thornhill. But, we'll see, man. Those are my thoughts, though, on the Juan Thornhill going to the Cleveland Browns deal. And those are all my thoughts on all the Chiefs departures that we saw from today. We did not get any movement in actual Chiefs free agency. They haven't signed anyone today. They could very well sign someone after I'm done making this video. But one more thing that I will add, another bit of news, is the Kansas City Chiefs did make a move on Patrick Mahomes' contract. This comes from Field Yates, NFL insider for ESPN. He says the Chiefs have converted $12 million of QB Patrick Mahomes' 2023 roster bonus into a signing bonus, creating $9.6 million in cap space per source. More flexibility for the champs throughout free agency. So this was one of the big moves that the Chiefs had the capability to make if they wanted to free up some money. The Chris Jones extension is another one. We obviously haven't seen that yet. Restructuring Mahomes was a no-brainer if the Chiefs wanted more money to spend, and they're going to have to get active with all these departures. Like, they're going to have to bring in some guys, and I think they plan on doing that. They're definitely working behind the scenes right now. And the interesting thing is that the Chiefs could have freed up a lot more money than they did here with this Patrick Mahomes restructure, but they only freed up enough for what I think they wanted to do. What that is, we don't know yet. We'll have to see. But the Chiefs did free up some cap space today, so that is very noteworthy. And just to clarify, this gives the Chiefs about $10 million in cap space even after the Juwan Taylor and Charles Omenihu signings, assuming those still happen the same and everything like that. So this is like actually the Chiefs opening cap space, not just them opening cap space to sign the players that we already knew they were getting. Whew, there we go. Got through all the Kansas City Chiefs related free agency news today. Those are my thoughts on all the departures that we saw today, but I got to hear from you guys as always. Like, what is going through your heads right now? What are you thinking? What do you think of Orlando Brown going to Cincinnati? What do you think of JuJu going to the Patriots? I got to know. Let me hear it down in the comments what you guys are thinking right now. But with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and sign off for the night. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. You guys are absolutely crushing it lately. Free agency has been great for the channel, and I'm glad you guys are enjoying my content. But also make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com, and I will see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs!